Let me shift gears a little bit to Tyler Adams. And obviously there's a smile on my face. I think there's a smile on every American's face when we talk about Tyler Adams, both club and country. You brought him in, you liked him, you had him before. Did you know he'd be such a brilliant fit for Leeds Football Club?
I hoped that he would be exactly what he is. Because I know him so well. I mean, if I go back to meeting him when he was 15, and I've obviously with his success in the World Cup, I've done a lot of these kind of interviews that go back to, and I like being nostalgic. I like thinking about the baby face on the kid that I saw at 15 years old, but the man that he looked like on the pitch. Yeah. And I've talked multiple times about his first day in training. He whacked Dax McCarty, our captain at New York Red Bulls, and looked at him like, "Get up." So with someone like him, I always want to make it clear I don't take any credit for who Tyler is now, and my job as someone who believes in him entirely and as a mentor and as a coach has been just trying to guide his energy and his efforts in ways that I believe could benefit him and us as a team. And certainly the sense of pride I feel when I watch him play in the World Cup. And I said publicly that the day I first saw him playing for the U17s when he was 15, in my head, I literally pictured 8 years, 10 years down the road, him captaining the national team at the World Cup, because I could see that. You could see that he had those building blocks at that age, and it was just about encouraging him, challenging him to grow, and helping him implement the things that he had naturally, the gifts he had naturally, and he's done that in a really good way. The beauty is that at Leeds here, again, is the football that we play, the way that we know each other, the things that the fans demand, the things that they like to see. Tyler Adams represents perfectly. Yeah. Right? And so I think that's part of the reason why we've been able to really pull out and extract the best version of who he is right now and see him. His development curve in the last 6 months has been fantastic. He's no doubt playing the best football of his life.
It's been impressive. Yeah, and look, I mean, I think it has to be said, the youngest American captain in a World Cup since 1950, it speaks to his character. I wonder if you could give us some insight. He's a new player to football club. I've been one. You've been one. It's difficult to get in and really understand what a football club is like when you just get there, right? You're just trying to survive. Do you see that day to day? Do you see the leadership and that character day to day with his teammates, in the canteen and dressing room?
Yeah. So, I mean, first, there's a benefit to having, the relationship that he and I have, and then coming to the club, and then there's a detriment. The benefit is we know each other. The detriment is that everyone thinks that he's my guy. He's my son.
For sure.
Right? But what was funny is he was treated more like that at Leipzig when I came back than he has been here at Leeds. And I think it says a lot about the group. Like here at Leeds, the group is really committed to doing everything they can to be successful because they know it requires full energy to the process, to the project every day, and that's the only way we can be successful with the competition that we experience on a weekly basis. Yeah. To be clear, I was asking Tyler more when I went to Leipzig to be a bigger voice and a bigger leader because I felt like that club and that team was more devoid of that. Whereas when he came here of Leeds, I believed we had really good leadership and we had a really good understanding of what was necessary to be the best version. And I just wanted him to come and be Tyler. And that's what I talked to him about, that I didn't need him to focus on leadership. I just needed him to focus on getting back to the things that make him a good player. And I think the relief of some of that has actually allowed him, without the pressure of being a leader, to be himself, which is naturally a leader. And, it's not like he's a massive voice in the team, but he's a well-respected voice. And I think given where he's at within our group, that's exactly where he should be and what is best for him.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, I think your job as a manager is to continue to nurture, right? So my question to you is, he's hit the ground running. He's been brilliant as a Premier League footballer for Leeds. He's now the captain of the U.S. national team. Didn't put a foot wrong in the World Cup. Where do you continue to challenge? In what area are you now continue to say you got to keep your feet on the ground and I need you to go a certain direction?
No, I think he can improve in almost every aspect of what he does. You know, the conversation I had with him before he left was about holding people accountable, supporting his coach and his best players, keeping everyone focused, having no room for lack of discipline, keeping the noise outside, keeping the process and controlling the things that you can control. And I think from afar, it looked like he did that perfectly. Certainly the interview before the Iran game is something that I think, I don't know, we've ever seen a professional athlete handle himself in such a graceful manner. And he will add those things to him. And then, you know, I think I'm always challenging him to physically be on top of matches, to tactically be intelligent and fit within the game in every phase exactly the way he needs to be confident on the ball and not just be satisfied with completing passes, but also be a difference maker in terms of in that position, making the right kinds of passes to set up the attacking moments and to set up the attacking players so that they can be effective in what they do, to be good at counter pressing, to make sure that he wins his duels, that against the best players, that he has the pride and wherewithal to make sure that they don't get by him, and that he's the kind of defender, lockdown defender that I know he is. And so now, you know, I think what he's shown is the next challenge is, can he do that at the highest level in every game at the best league in the world against the best players and emerge as one of the best defensive midfielders in the game, which, by the way, when I coached him back at the New York Red Bulls, is the exact same challenge I gave him at that point.
Interesting. Well, he's certainly answering some of that, and I love the fact you said just those killer passes forward to unlock some doors, because he does so many things really, really well. And I mean, if he adds that to his game consistently, wow, you know, I think he'll be an incredible player. Speaking of, I want to talk about Brendan Aronson, because he's a player who he gets me out of my seat. He excites me. I think that with Aronson, what surprised me, Jesse, is I saw him play prior to coming to Leeds, and yes, he has this pizzazz, he has this flair, but I thought that's going to take a little while to translate, and it hasn't, and I was wrong. And he turned Koulibaly, and he got running at him, and he pulled him down, and there's a yellow card, and I said, that for me, I said that's his coming of age moment in the Premier League, because there was no fear. You know, against the man I'd be fearful of. He just turned him and he ran. And I'm just curious if you thought it would translate so quickly.
Luckily with Brendan, I had the experience in Salzburg. And the way, maybe you've heard it, but the way I described it is his first day of training, I thought, poof, this is going to take a while. Brendan's over his head. And 3 weeks later, I said he was the best player on the team. And so I knew that his adaptation and his ability to grow quickly within a team environment, because of his intelligence and work ethic, was at the highest level I've ever seen. And he did, I wouldn't say it was exactly the same here, but he did something similar where he adapted. You know, in preseason we had some matches against some Prem opponents, and he was good in the match, but not above average. And then by the time we started matches in the league, he was up to speed, ready to go, and again, performing at a high level and a very important player in our team. And, you know, he's had a couple of games where it's been I know him well enough to know, like, what he looks like when he's at his best and what he looks like when he's a little bit unsure of himself. And we had one conversation where I said, you're 21 years old. You're one of the most important players on your team in the Premier League. Like, 3-4 years ago, if somebody would have said that to you, they would have said you're crazy. But you are, Brendan, and it's all to do with your personality and self-belief and aggressiveness. And don't ever doubt, don't ever stop, keep going. And then he played in the Crystal Palace match, and he made a play that hit the post and almost went in, and it was an incredible individual action. And in that game overall, he was nonstop for the entire match. So. You know, part of this as a coach is just now knowing your players and knowing the kinds of messages that are important and helping unearth what is valuable for them to understand and hear and know about themselves, so that they can go out and be the best they can be. And that's something I enjoy about being a coach.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if you've spoken. When I went to one of the World Cups I played in, David Moyes criticized me. He's a manager I love. He criticized me. I didn't want to speak to him. I think I let up a goal against Ghana, and he was on television, and he ends up criticizing me. I said, Gafford, what do you mean you criticized me? I didn't want to talk to him. I wonder if you've spoken to those boys throughout the process. I know you have a couple World Cup players. Has there been some communication?
Yeah, I mean, I try. Listen, in general, I try when they go with the national team to let them do what they do, to commit to that team, to not have to think about what's happening back here. But I'm always I'm about encouragement, right? And just giving them little notes about how to process what they're going through, use the experiences that I have, that I've learned along the way, and to just provide them with a little bit of encouragement to let them know how good we know they are. And in general, of course, there's times where you have to be really critical, right? And you have to challenge your players in big ways if they're not meeting standards for the way that we believe we need to play. Usually it's more about discipline, effort, commitment than it is about getting a play right or wrong. You want to always provide players with the freedom to know that they're going to make mistakes and that you're going to learn from them. And obviously, of course, the fewer mistakes they make, probably the better we're going to play. But they can't be afraid of that. And the last thing I want to do is instill them with fear of making mistakes. That's the best way to make mistakes. Go out, play, believe in yourself, be aggressive, go after the opponent, and typically you can will yourself to do good things.
Yeah, well, the message obviously was heard. When you look at the U.S. team, how do you assess their overall performance? If when you look at the 4 games, is there something that stands out to you? Or I know you obviously were a casual observer, but you clearly had, an eye on it.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I try to be really positive and supportive of everything with the national team. Partly that's how I think, but partly I certainly don't want to put any stress on anyone in that environment by talking points of what's being said. However, I think there's a lot of positives, right? The young team, for all of them being their first World Cup, I think they stood tall. They played well. Obviously the start against the Netherlands dug a hole for them that became too big to overcome. But even at 2-1, it looked like maybe. You saw the belief. You saw the youthful aggressiveness that we all want to see in our U.S. teams. I wrote an article for The Athletic before the World Cup, and I said, no one wants to hear this right now, but this is really a stepping stone for our young group in terms of gathering experience, performing at a high level, showing the world what we're about and who we are, and using that in 2026. And if you were to take that and now say, how do we do? I would give us high grades and a lot of big performances. We always want more, but I would say pretty good.
Yeah, I agreed. And you've having been in Europe now for quite some time. When I think about 2026 in the World Cup and the progression of this team, this generation more than any other, more than mine and yours and the one previous, they're starting to figure it out at a much younger age. But that's not traditional to an American player. We're late bloomers. We come to the party late. We can perform at a high level. That's not usually till 24, 25. When you look at Europe, it's a much lower age, much younger age. These players are getting thrown into it. Where's the biggest difference, you think, from European development versus the American development? And again, this is broad scope. We could talk about it for 8 days. But in terms of what can America do better in terms of developing these younger players to play at a higher level quicker?
Well, you're right. We could talk about this in many different ways. Along with when I said I've coached in 5 different countries, what I've also seen is I've taken my family, unfortunately for them, to all these different places. But I've also seen then my children play youth football in all these different places. And I've seen what different cultures value, according to what their culture is, what their environment is, what their whatever. And so, one of the things I saw in Germany is they play 8v8 until they're 15. And they don't have referees. They call their own fouls. They don't have offside. They've tried to create more free-flowing games. And often when my kids were young in the U.S., the referees would call every little foul. It's all about putting the ball in the box and long throw-ins, or being, when they were 5 years old, on top of goal kicks. In Germany, they put the ball at the top of the 18 for goal kicks, not at the 6-yard box, which meant that the opponent couldn't just run in and press the first ball. And so there's a lot of little development things along the way that I saw to encourage the players to be on the ball more and to use technique more and to understand how to flow within the game in 2v1s and 3v2s and 2v2s that are sort of essential building blocks for the game. And then there's just what the sport means to the culture. You can't replicate in England, right? In England, my son plays, and it's about tackles and battles. And like every game I go to, I'm like, I hope my son doesn't break his leg this game. But this is what England is. England is like, the game is hard and fast and competitive. And so, what are we? I think we're a collection of a lot of different ideas, partly because the country is so big. We've done a lot to invest in youth development and coaching, and I think that's helped the game progress. Putting the players in competitive environments and getting them on the pitch, and then also in their free time, letting them play and enjoy the game, which I've been at different New Jersey. I was in California. I've seen these things implemented in good ways. So, of course I have a lot of ideas, but what I do like to see is just more people care. More people are investing in coaching, and more kids enjoy the game and enjoy watching the World Cup or the Prem or even MLS or whatever. It's becoming more a part of who we are, which I think is probably in the end the most important thing.
I mean, and you referenced that article that you wrote, and I know you talked at one point about the World Cup in 1994. You were a student at Princeton University, and how that impacted your life, but also your career. Can you expand on that for us?
Yeah, well, to have the best players in the world in our backyard was something special. Like, I'd been to Europe and I'd been to games before it was the Premier League. I was in England, I was watched Serie A, and I'd been to San Siro. I'd been to a lot of places in Germany, and you get to watch the game, and it's almost like watching your heroes live. And now it was a collection of all that happening, an hour down the road or an hour flight, and to experience that, I think, was important for me. To know that the connection to the game isn't so far away, and especially as the game was becoming more global. Then sometimes I've talked about 2 years later, I was on a team with John Harkes and Marco Echeverri, and 5 years later I was playing with Hristo Stoichkov, and and that was like a dream come true, and I think it inspired. And listen, I was 18, 19. 20. And I was inspired at that point in my life to pursue this as a living and as a possibility, and imagine what it can do for 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, how we can inspire the youth of our country to believe that they can be on the biggest stage, that they can be the next Tyler Adams, that they can be the next Christian Pulisic. And what we've seen is that they can actually even be better. So that's the goal, I think, from generation to we're so impatient as Americans, but I think we've built this the right way. MLS deserves a lot of credit. The U.S. national team deserves a lot of credit, but we've really kind of implemented the development of the game in a really good way in our country.
Yeah, and it's still young. As you said, we want it right now, and we're still in our infancy as a footballing country. But you've come a long way. I'm curious if you feel the sense of pride that Americans have. They follow because of your stature and success. They're following your clubs. They're following you. Do you feel that across the pond? Do you get the energy that Americans have over here for you and your club?
I'm getting it more and more every day, I think. One of the things is I went back to Times Square, or went back to New York City in the summer, because we had a meeting with our different ownership groups here at Leeds. And then I walked through Times Square, and people were recognizing me and asking for selfies. And, Tim, maybe you've experienced that, but, I was a pretty average Joe playing in MLS for years. Nobody knew who the hell I was. So that was an eye opener for me.
Sure.
And then, like, they showed a stat in a league managers meeting. They showed a stat that for the first time in the history of any league, of any sport in the world, the viewership outside of England for the Prem is higher than the viewership inside. And they said it's because in the US, there's a 37% uptick in viewership. And they said a lot of it is because of Leeds United. And so when I get little tidbits like that, or when I see people on the streets and they're American and they, or little notes on social media, I recognize the responsibility, and I'm appreciative of it, and I'm appreciative of the fact that people like our team and that they're rooting for guys like Tyler and Brendan, and I think it can be a benefit for Leeds United. We always want to, I think, honor and represent our community in Leeds first and foremost, and that's what's most important, and certainly the experience at Ellen Road. But I think that if we can also add to it this idea in the US that Leeds United is America's team, like that can benefit everyone here at Leeds United. So we appreciate the support. Keep it coming. But yeah. Brendan Aronson jerseys, Tyler Adams jerseys, keep buying them off the shelves,
Sure.
I mean, we enjoy the passion, we enjoy the support. The finances can help us get better. Like, I mean, let's be honest. Like, I love it. Yeah. It's great. It's important.
It shows through. It shows through. You're doing a phenomenal job. I'm going to leave you with two really easy ones. So, you're an amazing husband, you're a wonderful father, you're a brilliant football coach. Football and family aside, what does Jesse Marsch do for you? What do you do that makes you happy? How do you get away? I know there's only 24 hours in a day.
No,
how do you get away?
For me, it's travel and experiences. That's the number one thing. Is I love, and it has a lot to do with people. Like, even when I took this trip around the world with my family, they asked what were the best favorite countries, and I said Nepal, Laos, and Jordan, and it was because of the people. They're very friendly and generous and open, and you could share things and so, like, the shared experience we have as human beings, like going, when I went to Machu Picchu a few weeks ago, this was an incredible, like, life-altering, like, educating yourself in that moment in time, how people chose to live and what they valued and what was important, and adding it to you as a person. So, yeah, I'm a people person. For good and for bad.
It doesn't get better than that. Jesse, thank you. You're a gentleman. I love spending time with you. Look forward to seeing you when we get over there just after Boxing Day. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I feel the same about you, Tim, and it's always great to catch up. And I was always, I was a little bit older than you, but then you came into MLS and you were a good goalie. And then when you went abroad, I was one of your biggest fans, and watching you and your career and seeing all the things that you've achieved. I don't watch you on TV as much. But you look great. You look great, Tim.
Thank you. Well, we love covering you, so it's been fantastic.
Right on, brother.
Keep up the good work.
All right.
We'll have a good holidays. We'll see you soon.
You too, pal. Take care.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.